How'd y'all like Ron's barn tonight? Who's good? Let's start right. Let's say a blessing, and let's start there. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for blessing us with everything you've given us in this world, the livestock, the food, what we were fed tonight, and may you keep us safe going home tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay, let's get started. Thank Ken Tart for doing the pictures for us tonight. Also, the American Legion building, they've got a nice facility here, something like here for this, don't they? Okay. How many of you are old enough to remember a comedian named Flip Wilson? And when he dressed up as a lady, as we see, what was his favorite thing to say? If he did something wrong, what did he blame it on? The devil made me do it. So the name of the program tonight is My Customers Made Me Do It. So we got like 50 slides we're going to go through at different periods of time, and everything you're going to see that happens at Mule City Feeds and the veterinarian a lot of times is driven by the customers. We did this 8 years ago, and I introduced myself as a fire prevention officer and Matt as a fireman. So you have a choice. You can deal with prevention or you can need a fireman. And some similar to that tonight. The picture on the screen is a picture of my father the year that I was born. It was a mobile feed mill.
What year was that?
1959. And there was no such thing as a stationary mill in this part of the world. Farmers had cribs they kept the grain in, and a pig would take 15 months to top out. A chicken would take 6 months to top out. And a cow would take 2 or 3 years at best. So he and many other people like him all over the country started taking grain out of cribs and putting nutrition in it. We've been doing it ever since. Oh, okay. So this is where it began. And to give you an idea, I am 63 years old, and I've been working at the feed mill since I was 11, so that's 53 years. And here's where we are today. We actually, at Mule City Feeds, were named the Agribusiness of the Year for Johnston County. Looks like, yay, but it's y'all. We don't do anything without y'all. This business is of no value to anybody without people in the horse industry. That is 40% of our business. So who you're seeing here, of course, is Lonnie smiling, me, my wife, my daughter Caroline, my wife Cynthia, her, and my daughter's husband Weston. On the back row is Lonnie's husband Curtis. He's a truck driver, and Chris, he does our granary, and Randy, he's our miller. Randy's been there about as long as I have. Randy, how many years? About 42 years? Yep. Say, this man, Randy Young, would not go to bed tonight if he knew you made your feed wrong. You won't find that in a lot of businesses. So, now, we're going to talk about the rest of our business that you don't see. Raise your hand if you've got something other than a horse on your farm. Okay. Well, horses, we make about 4,000 tons of feed a year for people. We make 6,000 tons a year for other people that don't have horses. And we do non-GMO, chicken feed, hog feed, you name it. This sign is actually at Lee's Fresh Market. When people unload their cows and they notice this sign and they get their meat back and they don't like the way it tastes, maybe they'll come visit us. So that's what this is all about. So 60% of what we do is not horse feed. So we do stuff for everybody. Don't know why that's on there at all. Okay, all right. Y'all remember Richard that passed away last year? Oh, no, something's gotten out of order. I don't know what happened. Anyway, Richard, the one thing the Department of Agriculture get me in trouble with at his funeral, we actually put ashes in a bag of Mule City horse feed and fed his horses. And that's as unusual as you get, but that was supposed to be in somewhere else. I don't know how that got out of order. Okay. This is Sonny. He's a mascot of the feed mill. He has his own Facebook, he's his own Facebook sensation. I think we were trying to do bookwork at the time. I don't know why that's there. That makes sense. Okay. All right. This is also a mascot at Mule City Feeds. Lonnie likes to show off her mule. The reason I have this picture here is two things. One, I tell her she can only compete 2 or 3 times a year, so she won't embarrass everybody. She does well. This mule is a show mule. It is not a performance mule. The other mules at Mule City Feeds, I call them yard ornaments. Okay? So we deal with 3 kinds of horses, or equine. There are yard ornaments like my mules. There are show animals like this, and there are performance horses. We're going to talk about all 3 kinds tonight. The main difference you need to understand in those terms is yard ornament, you can treat them like a performance horse, or you can just treat them any old way. A show animal, it's all about genetics. The animal's going to do good no matter who's got hold of it. Lonnie will disagree with that. She thinks she's got a lot to do with it. But these animals are show weight. Doesn't matter who brings them in the ring. Performance horse is all about management. That's where you're going to see everything go tonight. Now, I'm doing these things that don't have anything to do with horses because I want to point this out to you. 2 things. Have y'all heard of controversy about chicken feed lately? All right. I'm going to give you my spin on it. Feed mills are in business to do what? Make money. Okay. Prices have gotten higher and higher, and people are screaming. So are they going to make the feed cheaper because they don't want to make money, or are they going to use cheaper ingredients? Okay. So I think that's what's happening. This food right here, if you'll see it on the table back there, is corn, oats, wheat, barley, and a supplement pellet, flaxseed, and it's state of the art. We aren't changing it. But other people that have bought feed at other places come to us, and in 3 days they say, my chicken started laying eggs. 3 days. So you get what you pay for. Now, the reason I'm showing you this picture, this is the guy who made that chicken feed. He was 15 years old, sitting on the couch, playing video games, had Asperger's syndrome, which is sort of like autism, a light form of autism. His dad said, by golly, you're not going to sit on the couch. He taught him to be interested in chickens. He's getting his PhD this May, 8 years later, in poultry science. He's the guy who developed Mule City's backyard natural layer. So I watched him explode on the scene. NC State thinks they have a diamond in the rough. This is something new we're starting this year. It's called Extra Cow, and it is popped barley and corn. We're putting it in feed. We're still trying to find the right place in the horses. Horses do love this as a treat. It's real high sugar. It has 15% more calories than cracked corn. So there's a proper place for it. We just got to figure out how to make it work in the horse world. Now, I'm showing you this picture to let you know every time you walk in the door and say, what am I supposed to do with all those bags? This was a benefit fashion show in Clayton about 8 years ago, and Granddad thought it'd be cute to get his granddaughter to show off the bag of feed. Okay, so if you think that's something, I want you to look at the next. This is framed. It's in a store in Jacksonville, North Carolina. They want $40 for it. And they will probably get it because somebody will pay for it. So that 20-cent bag is worth something. Don't throw it in the trash can. We only use 1,200 a day. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's talk about the future a little bit. Got kids doing mutton busting. Some of you recognize him, Ben.
I know.
Ryan, how many kids did y'all have at Rodeo Mule Day last year?
About 70, 75.
Yeah, so we've got a future right on with the kids. All right, y'all know him? Is he still riding bulls?
Yeah.
Wailing Denny. Every time he falls off, his dad says, "Are you through yet?" He says, "Nope." He hops right back on. And stand up. I want you to come up here a minute. Come up here. I'll tell you about this young lady. I want you to see how kids start off. She and her dad showed up in my office one day, and they said, "We're going to Las Vegas to the championships, barrel racing." Said, "Can you help us out a little bit?" I pulled $200 out of my wallet. I said, "Put it on red." They both dropped their mouths wide open. How much money did you win in Las Vegas?
$1,050.
See, there she's done better. Best I could have done was doubled it. So we're starting young. That's good on the kids. Is this impressive to y'all to see about the kids? Y'all all right? Sit back there. Now talking about performance animals, how did y'all get that animal to Las Vegas?
In the trail.
In the trailer.
On the road.
You couldn't have done that on some kind of byproduct feed that you didn't know what was in it. So it had to be good. This lady does not buy feed from us, but I want to point out to you what you can do. This was taken at Mule Day 5-6 years ago. The stock contractor there is Strawberry. Most of us know him. The girl's name is Savannah Unger. And she's saying to him, "What am I supposed to do?" I took the picture, and he said, "Hang on." This is what she's doing today, 5 years later. She takes a $5,000, $10,000 horse, works on him for 6 months, and sells him for how much? $50,000. So there is future in this. She's just like 20, 21 years old right now. She's living in Florida. Grandparents helped her get into business, and so she went from riding steers at Benson Mule Day to doing what do we call this? I forgot what's the word. There's a word they use it, Grand Prix racing. Okay. All right. Something that most of y'all don't know, y'all see the feed mill. We do tours. Put the kids in white are high school students from all over the United States. The ones in the gray shirts are college students at NC State. The lady in black is the professor. She's also a customer of ours. And they come and see the feed mill in the summertime. They also go to Matt's place. And I'll tell you what, we like going in there because it was actually cool. It was June and July. Did y'all enjoy seeing Matt's place today?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's great. Now, time for another prize. But this time we're not going to pull it out of the hat. These are 2 mules. I want somebody to raise their hand and tell me what they weigh together. And the person who gets it right gets to come pick up a bag.
Come on now, don't be shy.
Raise your hand. How much these 2 mules weigh together? In 100-pound weight, like 100 pounds.
Back there, Paul, by the door.
Somebody say something.
300 pounds.
How much?
2,300.
3,000.
2,300.
2,500.
Wait a minute. All right, one at a time. Somebody, I can keep saying higher. Go ahead, sir. How much?
3,200.
28.
Who said 42? Who said 42?
There you go.
That's close enough. Come get the bag. You're looking at 4,300 pounds of mule. And I'm not making it up because I was standing in Columbia, Tennessee when they weighed That one mule weight could be any price you want. You can get a little bag or big bag. He weighed 2,160 pounds. If his one mate weighed 2,140 pounds, that's 4,300 pounds. We have never seen a mule that big in North Carolina. But that's how big they are in Tennessee. The man that's driving them is over 6 foot tall, 6'1", and they are actually hunkered down pulling 11,000 pounds of concrete block. So if you want to see a real mule, it's not in North Carolina, it's in Tennessee. Oh, something else is interesting here. The lady's in charge of the pool, and the way she treated the crowd, the way she acted, I think she came down off the mountain one day a year to do this event. Glenn Parrish was with me. If you ever get a chance, go to Columbia Mule Day. It's on the Easter break in that high school in Columbia, Tennessee. It's in April or May. Probably March or April. Okay. You're going to say, why have I got this picture? I hired somebody to go take pictures, and he takes pictures of some Chinese balloon. He's flying at 70,000. Actually, that's a U-2 spy plane. And here's pictures that I want to show you this. What you are looking at is a valley between the Great Teton Mountains headed to Yellowstone Park in Wyoming. It is right now under snow. I talked to the guy today that runs this farm. We're out of alfalfa hay, and he can't get here because he can't get out of Wyoming. What you're looking at is an Indian reservation owned by the Apaches, but his family somehow leased it for 99 years. He grows all the alfalfa hay, for Mule City Feeds. He grows 1 million pounds of barley a year for Coors. I wonder what they do with the barley at Coors. And he has about 500 head of cattle. And what you're looking at is a valley between the mountains that's about averages 500 feet wide and 20 miles long. And his dad talked to Indians into staying in town and leased him the reservation. It's worth probably, in their lifetime, probably $10 million. And so that's where the hay comes from Mule City. Why is it important that it's under ice right now? Has anybody got an idea? Right? Anybody else? The reason why is because you'll never see a bug in this alfalfa hay. There are no insects there. They will not make it through the winter. There are no blister beetles. Now, this is Mule City Feeds. This was taken from satellite, and y'all notice down here at the bottom is the Mule Solar Farm. How about that? We got a solar farm named Mule Solar Farm, owned by somebody in Chapel Hill, of course. This is my mule pen. Y'all see how dry it looks right here? Okay. We got 41 tanks that we put different ingredients in. Now I want you to compare it to this next picture. This is a small mill in Dickinson, North Dakota. And it's called Woody's Performance Horse Feeds. So smaller than Mule City Feeds. They have fed 15 Kentucky Derby winners in the past 30 years. And that's where our show goes from here. It's not Purina. It's not Cargill. It's not a big feed catcher. Kentucky Derby winners come out of this small mill right here, but why do you think they do it and the big companies don't? They don't cut corners. They do it right. They do what the animal needs. So that's where it goes from here. Matt, I'm doing all the talking. You got anything you want to say? All right, okay. All right. This is the winner about 5 years ago. And notice that the feed he uses is called what? Summer heat. And just keep that in mind. Where do they sell the feed at? Kentucky, Maryland, Belmont, and in California. That's where all the Kentucky Derby horses are at. Do you think those owners want crappy feed or good feed? Good feed. Okay. Now you're getting the point. This year, this animal won. The ones with check marks, these are the 12 animals in it. 8 of them were fed summer heat. Okay? Just keep remembering summer heat now. Oops, what? I must be hitting something. Okay. Okay, y'all ever heard of this lady?
Yes.
She's a top barrel racer in the country. Does anybody know what feed she uses? Summer heat. Okay. Y'all getting the point? This is a small feed mill that's feeding the top horses in the country. The ingredient in it that is most important is called Dominator seed. You can buy it on the internet in a 20-pound pail. Or you can go to Mule City Feeds and buy a 50-pound bag of Turning Point. It's exactly the same thing. So are y'all knowing why I'm telling you this now? We're using the same thing they're using, but you're getting it much cheaper. I want to introduce this guy to you. First of all, I want to tell you how I got to this guy. With Quarles, stand up. All right. I met this guy at the back of the room with in 1998. He came to me because he had show goats that had great genetics, but there wasn't a feed on the market that would express those genetics. And he found this guy who was feeding the Kentucky Derby horses, and he wanted to know what he knew so he could make his goats be the best in the world. And we fed racehorse vitamins and minerals to his goats. And a friend of his named Cole Younger won the Nationals with him. So you got to have good feed to express good genetics. Will's been with me as a customer ever since 1998. And I give him credit for a lot of the things we've been able to do over the years because he wanted to get it right with goats. So you can thank the goat man for getting the feed right. Okay? Now Gary is the guy who formulated Dominator seed and Turning Point. He's the guy who dealt with Woody's performance horse feeds 30 years ago. Now, more things about him that you need to know is, how many of you ever read National Enquirer in the grocery store? It's not there anymore. But at one time, they actually had a headline that said, "Zebra loses stripes at Arizona Zoo." Sound like a stupid National Enquirer headline. Gary put stripes back on. Their nutrition was so poor, the zebra would not express their stripes. So that's what kind of things that Gary does. Other thing, y'all, how many of you in the animal kingdom at Disney World? Nobody's ever been to Animal Kingdom? It almost didn't open because the big feed companies didn't know how to feed all those animals at Disney World. He got their feed straight. So this is what he does. He is actually an animal nutrition forensic scientist, which means that if you're a feed company and you do something stupid, he's the guy that's going to go in the jury box, in the witness booth and tell the jury how stupid you were. So he does everything right. And that's where all the nutrition comes from that we put in performance horse feed. So that's connecting the dots to Woody's performance horse. Anybody here ever used M2? That's summer heat. It's the exact same formula. We sell it mainly for mares and babies. We do have some race horses on it. That is the exact same formula as summer heat that Kentucky Derby winners all use. So we've got it right in Mule City Feeds. You just didn't know it. I just wanted to let the world know it. And Gary Priscilla would not want me to tell anybody that he gave me the formula, but he did. Anybody know this guy? Who is he? Brian, stand up. Now, I've heard this said about people jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, but why do you jump off a perfectly good horse? Okay. All right. The reason I showed Brian is he helped me develop MP. How many of you use MP? Okay. When he got off the rodeo circuit traveling the world, he said, everybody told me to come see you at Mule City Feeds, that you would have a feed that we can develop and get that will serve all kinds of purposes. And MP is what it is. MP you look at the ingredients, the grain is the main thing. When you buy feed from a large feed company today, the first ingredient is byproduct. When you buy feed from Mule City, if for a performance horse, it'll be grain first. And then we do have wheat mids in it, which is like whole wheat bread, extruded beans, that's what we do, alfalfa hay. The reason we put alfalfa hay in feed, this is in here at 10%, is because if you put some chopped hay into a grain mix, the food will digest, it will go through their digestive system much slower, and they'll digest the food much better. And then you've got the turning point. That's what this other stuff is. Next person we'll talk about, Allison, stand up. It's all about y'all. Y'all driving. Allison went to Matt because she had a horse she couldn't fill out. You really can't tell by looking at his horse, but his hip bone is sticking out. His ribs are showing, and the distance between his front legs is about 6 inches. And we couldn't figure out what to do with this horse. And we made something that was like MP, but much richer. And we determined that he had to eat 4 pounds of feed 4 times a day. We called, what was it we called that feed?
The signature.
No, before that, what do we call it, Miss?
Blue elephant food.
Blue elephant food. I call it the elephant mix, the blue elephant mix. Yeah, that's what he looked like, an elephant.
He's that tall.
Yeah. You ever seen it? If you were looking at pictures earlier, you saw it. Now, just describe what he looked like if you were looking at him in real life. This is what he looked like after we fed him 4 pounds 4 times a day.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, wow. Okay. She doesn't look too bad either. Okay. All right, wait a minute. 1 too many. You see how rounded he is now? The distance between his front legs was under a foot. His chest doubled in size. Now, this is the most important thing I'm going to say all night long. You can buy all the supplements you want. You can't do it. You have to feed them food to fill them out. I've had people walk in my door time and time again, tell me everything they're doing to their horse, and it's right. Except I find out, they walk out there, as they're walking out the door, I'm sitting here confused. They said, well, I feed him in the morning. I said, what do you feed him in the afternoon? He said, I just feed him in the morning. You've got to feed a horse all day long. And it took 4 pounds 4 times a day for him to pop. You've got to get a horse fat before you can get them fit. And you can't do it with packs of supper. It'll never work. It takes food. I'm sure you got something to say here, man. Come on.
All good.
All right.
We haven't said anything wrong yet.
Okay. All right. We're going to draw some more here. If I don't hit the wrong button again. Does that look like a dry lot to y'all? Does that look like one kind of grass? Okay. Now, I'm going to refer back to Matt right now. The most important thing when we met 8 years ago that Matt said that impressed me was he was amazed when he moved to North Carolina and people kept plowing their pasture. You want to expound on that or you want me to keep talking?
Let's keep going.
Okay. This is the pasture at Mule City Feeds for the mules. There are about 12 different kinds of grasses growing there. If you put one kind of grass in your pasture and it becomes diseased and die, how many grasses do you have left? So, multiples are better than singles. So, it's expensive, but it will pay for itself in the long run. Stephen Broadway, stand up. Stephen's associated with a group out of Sampson County that in 60 days last summer, they didn't use 1 bale of hay. And they didn't fertilize the land, and they had grass. Did I tell the truth? How many head of cattle were moving around every day?
800 and over 800.
Okay. if you treat the land right, it will give you what you need. I can expound upon this in several different ways, but what I've done in Mule City is my mules aren't in there every day, but it's got to the point that they can't keep it mowed down, and it's just a small area. You just can't let them eat it down to the ground. You'd be surprised how many people I meet, they start describing their pasture. I said, you talking about this, it looked like it got mowed yesterday? I said, that's not a pasture. So you don't put a plow in it, you don't plant it every year. If you're gonna spend money on an acre this year, another acre next year, another acre the next year, and after a while, you'll have something that'll take care of itself. Something else that I've learned, how many of you ever heard of cushions or metabolic problems with horses? That did not exist before World War II in the United States. It did not exist in Europe before World War I. So what caused horses to start having metabolic problems? Well, what'd you say, Caroline? Yeah, we changed lifestyle. What changed was we had a war and they made bombs. When they got through making bombs, what did they do with the bomb factory? What did they make instead? Fertilizer. Quit fertilizing your pastures. That's what's causing metabolic problems. When we make artificial fertilizer out of nitrogen, you make that grass grow up, it looks so pretty, it will eventually make animals sick. It causes, I guess I call it diabetes. Is that close enough?
Close
Okay. All right. So what they found out is after World War I in Europe, European horses started having metabolic problems. Never had it before that. It's because they used the bomb factories to make fertilizer. The United States got in on it after World War II. After making so many bombs, and they started making fertilizer. Artificial fertilizer made from the urea and natural gas is what has set off all the metabolic problems in the horses. Let them have a dry pasture. Let them do the grass. Now, one thing I've done at Mule City Feeds is we actually take the soybean meal, 3 parts of it and 1 part limestone. The limestone will stabilize the pH. And the bean meal, as it slowly rots, will release enough nitrogen the grass stays through. And it's cheaper than walking in the store and buying a 50-pound bag of fertilizer, believe it or not. Bill Britt.
You at home.
Just stand up a minute. You went from one type of grass to several types of grass. Are you happy so far? That's good as far. Well, my point was this: when you first saw it at Mule City Feeds, you gave me the craziest look I'd ever seen, like I was crazy. You still think I'm crazy?
Yeah. You're okay now.
Yeah, Bill was concerned about his pastures, and he's started working on it. This lady down front, Allison Trill, she actually puts these mixes together. If you ever want to see how to take a small acre at a time and build it up to where you don't have to go year after year seeding it, you need to talk to her, and I can get you in contact with her. This is what my mules look like on it about 3 weeks ago. And I can turn them in, now I can turn them in about every other day and they won't eat it down. It's growing fast enough. These are my yard ornaments. You still cannot believe how many people say, look at the babies. Those mini mules are older than the big guys. And the little ones were about 20 years old now. The big guys are about 18 or 19. And I'm amazed how many people think that mules have babies. That's their dad. A cat comes to him right about here, about 2/3 his size. So he's about 2 foot tall. He looks like Donkey from Shrek, doesn't he?
Is he still alive?
I don't know. I've lost contact with the people in Arkansas who raised him. This is something else that Allison did. Can y'all see those 2 horses' heads? They look like they're kin to each other.
Same horse?
So same horse, one was malnourished and the other one was nourished. Which one was nourished? Yep, the one on the right. How much time did that take to happen, Allison, to nourish that horse? 6 weeks. The horse on the left is mentally shocked. He's in a stupor. And the one on the right is the same horse 6 weeks later after they got good nutrition. And again, buying 10 different boxes of wiffle dust won't do it sometimes. It just needs good, solid nutrition. You remember which food you were doing this week?
That was metabolic miracle.
Metabolic Miracle. How many of you ever used Metabolic Miracle? Okay, all right. That was a joint effort on Allie and us together. This is what she's come up with now. It's called Metabolic Relief. The first ingredient is alfalfa hay. Why are we putting hay in feed? It slows it down. They also, it is only 15% sugar. Beef pulp is the second thing. It's low in sugar. Wheat midge is from whole wheat bread. Molasses, then you got all the turning point and transition type products that we got from the Kentucky Derby people. So, metabolic relief will satisfy a lot of horses that are in need. Allie, can you give us an example right quick?
Cushion's horse.
Any kind of Cushion's horse, this is a diet they can be on the rest of their life. Do they still need a lot of forage?
They can, if they have teeth issues, they don't have to.
So essentially, this can be a lifetime food and not have to feed any feed if there are no teeth. So there are solutions. Again, my customers make me do it. Everything you're seeing here tonight is not driven from Mule City Feeds to my customers. It is driven from my customers for us to make it and show other people. This was Jesse Chase's, about 60 days apart. Y'all know Jesse Chase performance horses? Okay. When I first met him and we started making him feed, he had 13 pallets of Smart Packs in his barn. Y'all ever heard of Smart Pack?
Yes.
Is Jesse here?
No, they're not here.
Okay. Jesse doesn't have any in his barn now. We make him one food. And again, this was over 60 days. Customer-driven answers. What's wrong with the pony at the top?
It's
Well, it's hair too.
Well, I'm gonna let's just say he's cushion, but he's rough. How many days was that? 3 weeks and a half.
Yeah.
Good nutrition does the trick. And that was the feed, the Metabolic Miracle. I've had ladies come to my office after trying Metabolic Miracle on their pony they were going to put down, and they cried because Metabolic Miracle solved the problem. It's real simple. Same formula. They're living off of alfalfa hay. You can give them dry coastal hay. They have soybean oil, flaxseed. It's 20% fat. And I'm going to tell you something wrong with the feed in a minute. And then, of course, you got the same turning point message there for all the vitamins and minerals and transition. When an animal, let me go back, when an animal looks like this, they devour that 20% fat. Once they look like this, they will back away from it and quit eating. That's the reason Allie made the metabolic relief, so they could have the same lifestyle without the high fat. So there's answers. You just have to ask the questions. Don't know where that picture came from. Oh, I know. It's broken up that whole ad. That's why. Okay. All right. See what that horse looks like. Does that look like his brother? That's the same horse. Same horse, 30 days apart. Danny Huffman. Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
You don't mind proving the word homeostasis.
I'm in Stacy.
Now,
Yeah, okay, yeah. With was once a stockbroker, and he likes big words. Okay, all right. What With is trying to say is the nutrition is balanced, and it causes the animals to live a balanced life when you start adding supplements and jumping around and changing your feed, every time you do something, you're throwing something else out of whack. For every yin, there's a yang. Homeostasis, when we put a feed together, I'm not going to say you something, and I'm not going to agree to do something if everything's not balanced. And that creates what he calls homeostasis. Again, that's the same horse in 30 days. Now, when I show you what did it, you're going to laugh. That horse was on our corn horse feed alone, 7 pounds a day. Got 6 pounds a day of our corn horse feed. Nope, I'm missing some pictures. There it is. Nope, we're going on to something. The picture was going to be of MS maximum supplement. Main ingredient is soybean meal, and then we put turning point and balance the other minerals. We use 1 pound of that a day with 6 pounds of corn horse feed, and we cause that horse to become that horse in 30 days. And all we did was add a little more protein and some minerals that were well balanced. I'm not saying my corn horse feed isn't balanced. Most of the corn horses under 20 years old do great on it. But this guy needs a little something extra. Also, the maximum supplement. If you do have grass running out your ears, don't be buying feed, making them fat. Just buy the supplement with the minerals in it. MS is what it's called. All right, when I first saw this picture, I said, that's a big rat. Sage, stand up a minute. All right, this young lady, she was getting after it. I guess this is the world championship, and she's doing her thing. How old are you, girl?
15.
All right. So the kids are still leading the future for us. Her dad actually makes his own feed. We make it for him. It's called workhorse fuel. He deals with people that get on horses' backs and ride all day long. When I met him the first time, I looked at him and I said, "You're a real cowboy. How many years did you spend in Colorado?" Yep. He came back here and found out he actually got on his horse to go see the cows every day, first thing in the morning. I said, "Now that's a cowboy." So there was no ATV, there was no pickup, it was man on the horse. That's what he still does. And this is an example of a customer-driven formula. Barley's the grain products. There's your wheat midds. There's the bean meal, and there's all the turning point stuff. We're using the same thing because it works. So, and again, in my mind, it's not cheap. But you see what the large feed companies are putting out there at $30, $35 a bag. This is cheap. All right, Kristen, it's your turn. Stand up, Kristen. Is there anybody else who can say they've had their name on the scoreboard at PNC Arena? That's a good time. Kristen's somebody else who drives Mule City Feeds. She's leaning in the barrels there. Who's yinging and who's yanging at that point? Okay. She makes her own feed. Now, why does she make her own feed? She's got people she trains, people that follow. And she told me she wanted to get rid of everything in her tack room and have one food for the animals. Is that correct?
Absolutely, makes traveling easier.
So it's pretty much the same thing that Brian Murphy told me. He said, let's put a feed together that works. This feed works. It's similar to some of Allie's feeds, except that it's much richer in other ingredients. And it has barley as an ingredient. A lot of sugar. These short performance horses, they can handle it. So do y'all see the common theme here tonight?
Yes.
It's about good nutrition and balance, and as Will said, homeostasis. Come on, Matt.
We good? I got you back.
Okay. All right, we're almost through. Now, what's the name at the bottom of the tag? Y'all read? Southern States. This is Mule City corn horse feed with a little bit of extra fat in it. Why are we making feed for Southern States? First of all, Southern States no longer has any more feed mills. They sold them all to Cargill, just like Penfield sold all theirs to Cargill. Like this company sells all the Cargill, and they all become Cargill products, and then Cargill won't make what people want. So Southern States is having Mule City Feeds make feed for Southern States. They get 12 tons at a time in Creedmoor, North Carolina. Our customers refuse to buy pellets that are made with unknown ingredients. So this food is corn, oats, and barley, molasses, vitamins, minerals, nothing special. But they're very happy people in Creedmoor, North Carolina, that Cargill would not do it. Okay? Now here's another example. This will be the last one. Who's this feed made for? What's the name of it? Bartlett Dunn Right Feed. They named the feed after me. Another feed company named the feed after me. We're making it for them. I asked them, I said, what kind of name you want to use on it? They come back next day, we want your name on it. And they're buying 6 tons a week. Is that right, Lonnie? That's just one store in Goldsboro.
Is that all stock like that?
It's the same thing as all stock high fat. So I'm telling you that everything we do is driven by the customer. I'm going to do a sidetrack a second. Last year we sold $6 million worth of feed. 2 years ago we sold $4 million worth of feed. We're not selling that much more feed. Y'all know stuff costs more, right? It will come back down. But there are some inflation factors. It won't go as cheap as it was, but it will come back down. Now, last thing before we go home, since Matt won't say anything. Have y'all watched Yellowstone?
Yeah.
Everything on there is the truth except somebody dies every other scene, right? All right. I want to get Bud Kearns to come up here and take the microphone away from me. I want to tell you about Bud when he comes up here.
Can we do a giveaway real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll tell you what, Bud, come on up here. We're going to do a giveaway there right quick. While you're pulling it out. Ron Barefoot, come on down. Aubrey Daniels, come on down. Yeah, great.
Chase Lee.
Chase Lee, come on down. Vanessa Huffman. Hannah Stutz. I really appreciate everybody coming tonight. We're going to introduce Bud. Bud probably doesn't want me to say this, but I'm going to. How long have you lived here?
30 years.
Wow. Okay, in his previous life, he started out as a policeman in New England, wound up doing insurance in Texas. Is that correct? And he spent time on this ranch. Would y'all like to hear what he has to say about it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. My good friend Bill Britt's here. He and I have spent a lot of time on the sixes. We've seen a lot of changes down there over the years since we first went there almost 20 years ago. There's a couple of things you need to know. There is no Jimmy. Jonathan White is an actor. He plays a part. He's not a writer for the sixes. And there are no women in the bunkhouse. There is a bunkhouse for the cowboys. There is a bunkhouse for the women. And if you're married, you either have a house in town or you have a camp job. I need to give you an idea of how big this place actually is. Harnett County is 601 square miles. We have a population of 139,000 people. Johnson County is 796 square miles with 227,000 people. Wake County is 857 miles with 1,130,000 people. King County in Texas is 913 square miles. Anybody got any idea what the population of King County is? Anybody? 1,000? 265 people. Wow. The whole county. There's 0.3 people for square miles. When Bill and I went down to a sale in 2007, I was friends with the sheriff, and we asked the sheriff for a place we could take this trailer where we could sleep for the night. And he said to just go out to his place, which was 12 miles out of town. Well, 12 miles is a pretty good distance. We had no idea where we were going, so we said, we'll just wait for you. We followed him. We drove 2 miles, didn't see another car, didn't see another house. Drove 5 miles, not another car, not another house. 10 miles, no cars, no house. And at 12 miles, he pulled into a dirt road, and we went down to the old 8 Ranch. And that's where he was staying, and that's where we spent the night. The old 8 Ranch is the first ranch that Burke Burnett bought around 1900, when the federal government gave the Oklahoma land back to the Indians, and he had to move his cattle down to Texas. That was the first ranch that he bought about 1900. Roy Rogers filmed a movie there in 1975 called Macintosh and TJ. It's a pretty good movie. Dickens is in it, and the Sixes Ranch and the old 8 Ranch there. Guthrie is the county seat, and the ranch is basically the town. 20 years ago, when we first went there was the supply house. There was no gas station, there was no cafe, there was nothing there, other than the working ranch. There was jip water that you couldn't really drink, so the local people went to the Sixes and filled up their jugs with water so they could have drinking water at their houses.
Put your mic up, your mic.
The supply house at that time sold clothing, boots, ammo, rat poison, etc. The closest store was Walmart, was 90 miles away in London. Coffee was in the back room. They didn't charge you for coffee, but if you wanted a cup of coffee, just went in the back of the supply house and back. I'll tell you one story. When we were there at the supply house, I was there with Ken Trader from Benson, whom we lost last August. He and I were in the supply house, and this big Cadillac drove up. Folks were from Dallas on their way to Lubbock. Big guy get out of the Cadillac, a little blonde get out of the Cadillac. He went into the supply house, and he wanted to know if we'd take a picture with his wife, and we said, sure. So I stood on one side, and Kent was on the other. We put our arm around a great big smile, and man took the picture. I figured that picture's hanging someplace in Dallas in somebody's house. They started looking around the supply house, and the manager came over and told Kent and I, she said, you boys better get out of here before they find out you're from North Carolina. In 1921, they found oil up in the Dixon Creek division, and in 1969, they found oil in Guthrie, and that changed everything. There is a school in the town, and I don't know what they're going to do with the 666 TV show that they're going to do. It has 12 grades, there's probably 6 kids in each class. There's no place for the teachers to live, so if you get a job in Guthrie, the ranch will give you a house to live in. There's a post office, there is a church. There was also a cave on the Sixes. That Mike Gibson, when he was the manager, he went into the cave. And these caves aren't big holes in the wall. Usually they're just little hole in the ground. He went in and found all kind of Spanish conquistador items that were in the cave when they explored that area years ago. You saw on Yellowstone when Casey shot that man in the toilet for kidnapping his son. Burke Burnett shot a man in 1913 in the toilet in Paducah. Posted a $15,000 bond, and that night he was on his way back to Fort Worth on the evening train. $15,000 was a lot of money in 1913. Now, how they're going to incorporate that into the Sixes show, I don't know. There's a cowboy crew on the ranch. There's a veterinary crew on the ranch. There's a windmill crew. There's a fence crew. Full-time plumbers, full-time carpenters. Because there's nothing around. If something breaks, there's no way to get a hold of anything. They do have an internship program I had a young girl at my place that I tried to get her to apply for the internship program. She didn't complete the application, but I was pleased to see that there is a girl from North Carolina. She goes to Mount Olive College. She is there for the intern program for this year. The big event down there is the fall sale that they have. And if you want to go to the Sixes, that's the time to go. They'll have a demonstration on Friday. They'll have a barbecue lunch on Friday that you can buy a ticket for. There'll be a free dinner that night put on by either one of the veterinary supply companies or a feed supplier. Saturday will be the sale. They'll have a barbecue at noontime that you can buy a ticket for also. It'll either be Risky's Barbecue out of Fort Worth or sometimes Perino Steakhouse out of Buffalo Gap. When Dr. Blodgett died in November, one of the traditions down there is the ranchers went to the funeral and they all bring their hot irons. And they brought their propane tanks and they all heated the hot irons and they all branded his casket before he was buried. What they do with the show on television, I don't know what they're gonna do on, how they're gonna tie any of this in. I brought some pictures with me. There's a lot of cedar down there and a lot of mesquite. And they have crews out there that do nothing but rub that up, put it in piles and try to burn it. Some of the country is just too rough to get any machinery in to clear that land. Another country is free and they can clear it. Lots of deer down there, lots of sheds. I've come home with a pickup truck, a bed of it full of deer antlers. They make enough down there, they build Christmas trees out of the deer antlers. There's also a lot of rattlesnakes down there, which you can kind of respect because they'll tell you that they're there. Horses are constantly getting bit in the nose by a rattlesnake and taken to the clinic. I also brought a couple of flyers that were on the back of the Outdoors Journal for the sale this fall. I made some notes, so I try not to remember anything, and I forget anything. So the supply house right now is basically a gift shop. A friend of mine went in the other day to get rat poison, and he couldn't even get any rat poison. You can look them up, it's 6666 Supply House. They have a website, all kinds of items on there to buy. The Sixes also have if you just put in 666 Ranch, they have a website with a Facebook page. You can see what's going on with that. It's a neat place. It's going to be interesting to see what Taylor does with the TV show. So, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them for you, but I appreciate you listening.
Thank everybody for coming. I know you want to head home. Main reason we did this thing, it's been 8 years. I want you to know that y'all drive our business. I know you drive his business. And we thank you for everything you do. Have a good night.